Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. Today we're playing Civilization 6 because it's relevant to something I'll talk about later.
From the first stirrings of life beneath water,
And because I want to hear Sean Bean talk to me.
to man taking his first upright steps, you have come far. Now begins your greatest quest. From this early cradle of
Yeah.
civilization on to
Anyways, if I can talk over Sean Bean, which
science and religion,
is probably a federal crime.
you have mastered Saladin. Your quest
This
is not
week
noble.
on
I have a deep respect for you.
this channel,
Not rush into the unknown. Given time,
it's really distracting. All right, I guess I can't talk. I can't do it.
find their way back to
You just gotta deal with it. All right, thank you.
As your personal advisor, I am qualified to.
God, this game's gonna be filled. Can I just mute voices or something?
I am at your service.
Hold on. Let me just do something. Let me just do something. Speech. Let's just turn that down. All right. So this week on this channel, we have a lot of Final Fantasy. As promised, there is plenty of Final Fantasy to be done. I think I have 2 more parts for Final Fantasy 1. And really, I only have 1 more video. I decided to break it into 2 parts because it's an hour and 45 minutes long. And I figured that's probably smart. I mean, there are some people that probably want to watch an hour and 45-minute video, but I don't know. I don't normally break videos up, but that was a little extreme for me. And it's a bummer for the second part, the final part of the playthrough, because it's got pretty much like scratchy, clicky, not great audio for the entire video, which is really a bummer. This is a problem that, if you've been following the channel, you're probably aware of, that has been plaguing me for quite some time. And I always blamed it on Windows 10, and it could certainly be Windows 10 is the problem. But really, specifically with the audio interface that I was using for my microphone, the Focusrite Scarlett or something, whatever, like a $100 audio interface. And for whatever reason, they could not get their shit together. In order to fix this problem, perhaps specifically with Windows 10 or whatever, but basically after a short while of running, eventually the audio would start to just give out and crackle and basically, I guess, like lose power or something like that, and you had to reset the audio interface in order to fix it. And when I'm recording for an hour and 45 minutes or whatever, at some point it's just going to give out no matter what. I'm not going to reset the audio interface in the middle of the video just for what I didn't. So to fix the problem, I just bought a new audio interface. I mean, I bought a much better one. Well, not much better, but better. And I bought that around the start of Final Fantasy IV, which was like, you know, a week ago or something. But I have not had a single problem since. It has been absolutely perfect. I've been completely happy with it. So none of the videos after that point have crackly audio, but unfortunately, until that point, there's going to be some issues, and there's nothing I can do about it now. Yeah, so Final Fantasy has been going pretty well. I think last hanging with Mangg, I was about halfway through Final Fantasy 5, and now I'm partway through 7. They definitely get longer and longer, all the games. So it is going to slow down pretty dramatically. You know, like Final Fantasy 1 you can beat in like a day or two. Beating Final Fantasy 7 in a day or two, that's a bit more tricky. But it's still going. I got videos for months. Satan suggested that I upload on some days 2 a day, which is probably going to happen if I ever remember to do it. Because otherwise, yeah, it is going to be months and months before you see everything. Even though and I don't really like to have that much just sitting on my hard drive. I did back up everything that I have so far to another portable hard drive, but you know, problems can happen and who knows what, so I don't want to leave it sitting around for a couple of years. Also, the Bloodborne lore edition has continued, which is those are kind of fun videos to do because I just get to sit there and talk non-stop for like an hour about Bloodborne and about Cthulhu mythos and stuff like that, so those are good. Of course, Blades in the Dark, and I think that's about it as far as I know. On the Exploring series, we had the Bretons on Monday, which was received decently. Better than Altmer, so that's good. I personally don't find them among the most interesting races in the game, but that's just me. Some consider them their favorite. And, you know, that's a nice thing about Elder Scrolls, is everyone's got their favorite races and their most hated races, just like real life, I guess. Anyways, I worked on the Nord video this week, which was some videos I have to, you know, scrape the barrel to get every bit of interesting tidbit in there. And other videos, it's like, all right, what do I have to cut out? What am I leaving out? What do I not want to talk about to really expand this video too long? And there's a lot to talk about with the Nords because they, you know, were the star of a whole game, just like the Dunmer. And I guess the Imperials, but not really to the same extent. But I did try something new for the Nord video. It was basically inspired by some random comment I read on one of my videos. Where it's just like, oh, you know, great video, but as a small suggestion, if you wanted to put in like a panning effect on the images, it would make it much more interesting. And at the time, I was like, nah. Really, my concern was I didn't want it to be too distracting. That's really the thing. Like, the images are there, so it's not just like a black screen or a static image the entire thing. They, you know, they're there to either give a visual aid to something that I'm talking about. Because, you know, like, I rarely describe anything. Like, I don't describe the races, really. I don't describe locations or environments or whatever, because that's what the pictures are there for. So when I'm just talking about, you know, the history of the Khajiit, I don't need to really describe them, because you're looking through the whole thing at images of Khajiit. Picture is worth 1,000 words, basically. And so... But, you know, I don't ever want... I really don't ever put text in the videos. And I didn't want the images to be really overbearing, because I want people to just focus on, you know, the things that I'm saying. Rather than just, oh, look at these cool, awesome pictures, and look at all this artwork, and it's great. And, you know, a lot of people do that. And it's probably foolhardy to even think that I'm really, like, educating people with these videos, because 95% of viewers are just, like, fanatics that will watch every single video about Tolkien or the Elder Scrolls or Star Wars, and then they'll just sit there and be like, oh, interesting video, but you forgot about blah blah blah, and you pronounced this wrong, and blah blah blah, and I know everything because I am a scholar, I have my degree in the Middle Earth, and blah blah blah, so here's what you did wrong. I mean, the whole purpose and goal is to, you know, show people that don't know, that are casual fans, to educate them or whatever, but that's really not how the internet works. Sometimes that is what happens, but not enough, in my opinion. I have to deal with the scholars. And so, yeah, so I was originally against the whole panning concept, because I didn't want it to be too distracting. But I was like, alright, you know what, I'm going to give it a try for the Nord video. That's a problem. Just to see how I liked it, to see what people thought. And so as I was working on the video, you know, I did the panning effect. I tried not to overdo it, although I kind of... I wanted to try it on a lot of different images to see where that panning effect works and where it doesn't work, and to sort of get the hang of it. And by the time I was done, I was really happy with it, actually. I was really happy with it. I was thinking while I was doing it, I was like, man, I wish I had done this a long time ago, because some of the videos that I put together would be vastly improved with a panning effect. Especially, you know, like my big popular like the Morgoth video, you know, the Dwemer video, the Cthulhu video. These would be greatly improved by a panning effect. If only for the fact that it lets you... It lets me zoom in on images and then pan to sort of get the full impression. But by zooming in on images, I'm able to show off more specific detail within the image, rather than just zooming out so I can show the whole image at one time. It is just a good effect. And it doesn't work for every image, and I didn't use it for every image, of course. But for some of them, it's really good looking. I really like it. This guy needs to piss off. Naval unit. Why do I have naval units? Get naval unit. I thought it was wonders. What was I thinking? Fuck. Can you settle? On the turn you move... No, so he's done. I should probably delete him, but maybe we can get him back. Anyways, what am I talking about? I don't know how to play Civ, so don't bug me. Wow, they didn't take over my settler? Oh, I thought these were barbarians, but I'm retarded. I see. Of course they didn't. Why am I so afraid of them? Anyways. You're in my city, bro. Anyways. The things I was talking about. So yeah, I think the Nord video is probably one of the best looking that I've maybe ever made. Because of that, and because the Nords and Skyrim, of course, has plenty of great artwork made for it. Because, you know, it's Skyrim. And so... yeah, I was not exactly pleased with the script, because I felt like, you know, with videos like that, it's like, did I leave out the right stuff? Should I have mentioned this? Blah, blah, blah. But after I put the video together, I was like, this is a fine product. Fine product I've made. So yeah, I'll post a comment when I put the video live, asking what people think about it. I'm sure the reception will be pretty positive, and so it'll probably become the norm, which means more editing work, but worth it. Yeah, so next week, I think, well, we're done with races after the Nords, so we're gonna move on to some other stuff. In addition, we're going to be doing all the Daedric princes, which I have to, of course, work on in my free time when I'm not being lazy. So we'll get around to that. And well, the Elder Scrolls will go past the new year, but I hesitate to say how far it'll go past January. It's really going to come down to how quickly I can crank out the Daedric Princes videos. So I would guess sometime in late January, maybe early February-ish, give or take. I'll probably put up the polls for the next series, which is usually pretty exciting. I'm still hoping for Warcraft, but didn't do exactly that well last time, and I'm sure people are probably pretty sick of high fantasy at this point. Yeah. So, I guess that's it for the Exploring series. Let's talk board games. We played one board game this week, and that was Civilization. That's right, Sid Meier's Civilization, the board game. They very recently, I mean, surprisingly recently, it's actually pretty much out now. People are receiving their copies of a new Civilization game, also from Fantasy Flight. It's called Civilization: A New Dawn. And I guess it's meant to sort of fix a lot of the issues that people had with the last game, which is what I own and what we played on yesterday. The main problems that game has, at least the base game, is technology is just too slow, and the combat sucks donkey ass. It sucks an ass's ass. Which is, I mean, that's how I feel as well, so I'm looking forward to the new one. Kind of what I felt while playing yesterday was like, I'd kind of rather just play with these people, but play the computer game. You know, I'd rather just play Civ 6 with these people over, like, voice chat or something. I mean, that's basically what you're doing in the board game. It's meant to replicate this experience, but on a board game. But it's far less expansive. You know, there's far less options, and you have to sort of manually perform a lot of actions and things like that. And of course, the combat is garbage. And so that's just kind of how I felt. Was oh wait, I don't want religious pressure. That seems like a bad thing. You take your religious pressure and shove it. Anyways, what was I saying? Right, so, it just... I mean, it's an okay board game, and it was an okay, fine experience, but if I sat... You know, if we all owned it, which I don't think we all own it, and we all sat down with voice chat and played a game of this, I feel like it probably would have been a better experience, or at least, you know, couldn't be worse. I don't think. So we did random civs. And there's only 6 in the base game of Civilization, the board game. And so I always prefer Egyptians. That's my go-to civilization. Especially, you know, after playing Pharaoh and Cleopatra back in the day. But I got stuck with America. Anyways, and so, much like the computer game, well, sort of like the computer game, there are a few different ways that you can win. You can have the military victory, where you take over another person's capital city. You conquer it, which is exciting. There's the tech victory, where you're the first to achieve space flight. You win the space race. There's cultural victory, where you have cultural domination across the globe. You are the center of media and culture. And then there's the economic victory, where you are the wealthiest civilization in the world. So last time we played, it was an economic victory that pretty neatly won out. And so this time, it seemed like we were all gunning for a cultural victory. Like, we were all heading up the cultural track and kind of focusing on that. Because it is... You don't want to neglect... Well, you don't want to neglect any of the 4, really. You want tech, you want to have some military presence, you want to be cultured, and you want to have some money. But culture is good because you get these cards that can influence the game. Like, they can fuck over other people, they can give you stuff, you can learn tech from other people. There's a lot of fun cards in there, and they can also give you a random great person, which is great. You're attacking my city, bro. Did you just declare war on me? It seems I've transgressed against your kingdom. See, this is a Phil move right here. Comes and attacks me and says I've transgressed against his kingdom. Well, my buddy Gilgamesh over here and the Sumerians, they're going to kick your ass. He's got war cards. Unless he's also going to kick my ass. In which case, that would be rough. Anyways. So we're all gunning for a cultural victory. No one is really focusing on economic, although there's a point early on where you can swing towards the economic victory if you so choose, but it didn't seem like any of us were doing that. I'm a peaceful civilization here. I should probably buy a unit. And so we're going along, and we've been playing for a while then, and it seemed like it was going to end up being a cultural victory for one of us. You know, I was actually in the lead for culture, and I was doing pretty good with that. And, you know, I was moving my little army around the board, really just towards Phil. And I really didn't do anything with... I wasn't planning to do anything with him. Because it's just like, oh yeah, I'll have him, like, run laps around his capital city just to fuck with him or whatever. But I was not expecting to do anything with it. But there came a point where I was looking at my tech cards and I was looking at stuff, and it seemed like I had actually upgraded my military units quite a bit without really realizing it. And so I was like, oh, I seem to have the strongest military on the table. And Phil's capital city was completely unguarded, and he had no units. He really had no military to speak of, much like me in this situation. And funnily enough, he was playing as the Egyptians, so I guess I was attacking him in Cairo. And so the last turn, I just bought a couple more units. I put all my production into that, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to go attack his capital city. And nobody stopped me, and he couldn't do anything about it. And I killed him, and I won. I won the game. So I took out his capital city. So that was good. Technically, probably was not allowed. I think I technically cheated after I looked at the rules afterwards and stuff. Well, you know, none of us liked the battle rules. Like, no one cared about combat. No one was planning to do combat at all. We actively avoided combat the whole game because none of us liked the rules at all, and none of us understood it. So, I mean, it was just kind of this overall thing that, yeah, I think I'm fucked here. That's alright. I mean, why wouldn't you declare war on me? I'm getting my ass handed to me. But now I have a slinger. What am I going to do with you, man? I got to move you to a holy site, but that ain't no easy thing. Anyways, what was I talking about? Right, so, the reason that I technically probably couldn't have won is because basically there's a thing called a combat bonus in that game. And your combat bonus is determined by whether you're defending a city or you have a lot of units or figures, I guess, or if you have like a great general, you know, things like this can provide a combat bonus, which doesn't actually help you win the fight. Like, you can still just get demolished with no units and just die instantly. But whoever has the higher combat bonus at the end of the combat is actually the victor. So basically, you can lose all of your units, and you can effectively lose the battle. But if you're defending a city, or if you have a general or something, and the other person has nothing, they have no combat bonus, you can win the war, I suppose, and you force them to take the loss. And so basically, the reason why I won is because he had a pretty big combat bonus. He had a 16 combat bonus because he got 12 from his capital city and then 4 from a general. And so 16 was pretty good. That means he only had 1 unit, and I killed that instantly, easily, with no casualties on my side. So it was fine. But in order to technically win, I needed to have a higher combat bonus. And so my combat bonus was the total number, the strength of all my units in the battle, which we tallied up as being 20. So that was higher than 16. The problem comes from hand size. When you go into battle, you have a hand size. And so you might have a stack of units that you have available to you, because you can build units constantly and just have a whole deck of units. But when you go into battle, you shuffle that whole deck, and you only take a number of cards into battle equal to your hand size, which by default is 3. 3 is not many when you're trying to take out a capital city. You need to have more than that. Unless you have airplanes or something involved, it's not going to happen with 3. You're just not going to... This is almost by design, actually, because the highest strength that you can get is 4 on a unit, and so 3 units of 4 strength is equal to 12, which is the number of their capital city defense by default, and ties go to defense. So I think that's done on purpose, so that by itself, even if you have upgraded units, but you don't care about military and upgrading your hand size, you cannot beat a capital city. It is pretty much by design. And so when I went to battle, we didn't care, but we didn't look at hand size, and so I just took all 5 of my units in there, and that's how I got up to 20. Winning the battle and winning the game. So yeah, I mean, technically, yeah, I guess I wouldn't have won. At least I wouldn't have won that way. The game would have gone on. You know, it would have been anybody's game, and I'm sure they'd prefer that outcome. But you know, we're never playing the game again because we're gonna move on to the new version, and if we didn't have a new version, I mean, I would buy the expansions just so I could fix the combat a little bit, but I don't know if it even changes like the combat system. I think it just makes it better. I don't know. Either way, we're moving on, and so it's whatever. It's whatever. Okay, so Blades in the Dark. We had our second session this week. You know, they had done the trial session, the learning session. They knew how to play, so now the gloves were coming off. Alright? Now I was given just a real job. This was not a starting scenario or anything like that. This was just an on-the-fly job that I came up with, sitting at the table. And I was just going to run it, and they were going to deal with it. We were going to see how good they could be. I should probably, like, negotiate with these people. I have to negotiate with 2... Can you negotiate with a civilization to make them go to war with another civilization? I don't know if you can do that out the gate to have a joint war. Who knows? Hey, Philip. Philip, I want to talk to you. Make peace. You must wait 10 turns after declaring war. I didn't declare war. He declared war. Bullshit. They're pillaging my city, sieging my city. It's all just shit. Anyways, so they decided. I think it was still a bit of a learning session, to be honest. They didn't know, I guess, about claims. They didn't realize that, you know, the goal of the game, and yeah, it is a game. The goal of the game is to increase your gang size. You know, the goal of the game is to build a huge gang so you can take over the city. That is the ultimate end goal of Blades in the Dark, at least as far as, you know, the book is written. That's the impression that I get. Perhaps I'm wrong, and, you know, it's an RPG at the end of the day, I guess, so you can do whatever you want, but the way the rules are there, it seems like you want to own the city. I mean, why are they doing a joint war against me? Only one of them is going to take over the city. You're going to have to fight about this eventually. I'm not going to survive 4 more turns. And so, yeah, I guess they didn't realize that they wanted to... sort of expand their gang, but I mean, it wasn't necessary, I suppose, at this point. They wanted to... They wanted to do just a... They wanted to do a smuggling job. So they wanted to do a smuggling job, and so they started asking around their contacts about a potential job. And so, you know, They have lists of contacts. You know, their playbooks, their characters are supplied with pre-written lists of contacts that they can sort of expand upon and develop on their own. But it's there. It's a nice starting point that, okay, I know all these people. I can go to these people. They can help or hinder me or blah, blah, blah. And so... they ended up going to a sort of chemist or apothecary or whatever that I think Ziggy knew. And he ended up having a job for them. And so I used the book has sort of a list for each crew type, whether you're assassins or smugglers or hawkers or bravos or whatever. It has a list of suggestions for the DM for potential jobs. And so one of them was like a Leviathan hunter ship, you know, is outside the docks and needs a shipment of something or something like, needs something illegal or something. And so I'm paraphrasing, but anyways, I decided, okay, the job is that he's made a deal with a Leviathan hunter that for some reason or another is not allowed to dock or is choosing not to dock. The details are not important for this crew. For whatever reason, it's not docked, so it's outside the city. And this chemist has made a deal with apparently some of the people on the ship to... They have purchased some goods from this chemist, some illegal goods, drugs or whatever. Crack cocaine, whatever you want to say it is. And so he needs a crew to smuggle a crate of drugs out of the city, through past the docks, and onto this Leviathan ship. And that's it. That's all I had. That was the whole idea for the job. Okay? So, I think that's game over for me, or do I... No, I'm pretty sure that even though you have units, there's nothing I can do. Yeah, we get it. And war carts are very good. Thank you. So yeah, that's all I really came up with on the spot, was they're delivering this crate of drugs to this ship that's outside the city. And the rest of the details all come throughout the course of the session, which is really, I guess, probably how it sort of should be. And at the end of the day, that's how I prefer it. You know, when I first started DMing long ago, not that long ago, I guess, I was very meticulous about preparation. I completely over-prepared, and that's really bad. My first D&D campaign, I felt, was just a disaster. Because basically it was like, I would come up with a scenario, and it's like, oh, I want to run this scenario. But really it was more like, I want to see these players do this scenario as I've pictured it in my head. That's pretty much what it was. And so that's, of course, railroading. And so the problem is when you over-prepare like that, you have a vision in your head of how the session goes down and how the players act and react and things like that. And so whether you're conscious of it or not, you are going to influence or push things in a certain direction. And that has a tendency to happen with, you know, D&D and older RPGs and things like that. But, you know, the new wave of RPGs is much more free-flowing. They don't want you to prepare almost anything. And not only that, they want you to incorporate the players into the development of the story. It's not all just, I am the dungeon master, this is my story, and you're just living it. You're just playing through it. The whole point now is that, no, it's all of your story. You're all developing this together. It's just, there is still the single reactionary player, and then there's all the action-type players. But anyways, you know, the main point is that the dungeon master, the GM, the game master, I'm just stuck with DM, but whatever. When sitting at the table for each session, the GM should have really only slightly more of an idea of where the story is going to go than the players do. Which, when compared to how I originally ran a campaign, is the complete opposite. Because when I originally ran it, I knew exactly where this was going to go, and there was really no discussion about it. And that was bad. But anyways, so all I came up with was that thing of them delivering drugs to this ship. And I imagine, you know, they would have to go through the docks somehow. Something would have to go through the docks. But other than that, I didn't know what they were going to do. And so, and remember, in Blades in the Dark, when you get a job, you decide to do a job, a score, you just come up with the method, the sort of approach that you want to do for the job. Whether it's going to be, we want to do a stealth approach. We want to do a social approach. We want to do a deceptive approach. We want to do a full-on attacking approach. That is very simple. There's really practically no discussion about this. You should not be discussing, as the players, you should not be discussing details of that approach. You know, you should not be discussing, okay, we want to sneak this through there and do this kind of sneak in and talk to this guy or lie about this and say about that. No, you are just deciding the overall approach. Whether you are accomplishing this majorly through stealth, social, or whatever. That's it. I mean, the book really sort of tries to beat this into your head that the players are not meant to plan. Just as the GM is not meant to plan. It's meant to be very free-flowing. So they're just supposed to say, okay, we want to do this with a sort of social approach. And I think they decided deception. They wanted to deceive the authorities in this case, their opponents. They wanted to deceive them in order to complete the job, which in this case is delivering drugs to the ship. And so, okay, I said, all right, you're doing a deceptive approach. Now, they needed to provide the detail of what exactly is the deception. You know, I don't have the specific phrasing here, but basically, what are you doing to deceive the obstacle? And so, this was really just Ziggy's idea. He came up with this. But his approach was they were going to put all the drugs in a coffin. And they were going to dress up in mourning clothes. And so I pretty much kind of stole this from Gentlemen Bastards. Where in Camor they have like a god of death. And so they have these very... For all their gods and stuff, the priests and followers or whatever have a very specific dress that they wear. They have a very recognizable uniform or whatever the case. And so I was like, okay, well, in this city for funerals and things like that, there's a very specific garb you can wear that when people see it, they know that you're in mourning or you're going to a funeral or whatever. And so, basically, the lie was he was bringing this coffin to the docks because it was his dead son in there, and he was having a burial at open sea for his son. This was his lie. And so all three of them were dressed in sort of funeral clothes, mourning clothes, and they were just going to bring the coffin through, and then they'd be through the sort of customs or whatever. The problem with this plan was that it majorly hinged on them not looking in the coffin. And that's probably not an assumption you want to make, that they're just not going to look in the coffin. And they actually ended up botching their engagement roll, I believe. And so I decided security was heightened. For whatever reason, they were having some trouble with smugglers, perhaps. You know, maybe a rival smuggling gang botched a job here, and so now they're on alert. And so chances were even more likely that they were going to pop open this coffin. And so they had to deal with this guy who had a sort of a hound that was going up and down the line of people that wanted to get into the docks. And the hound, of course, smelled all these drugs in this coffin, because it was not like... This thing was not like hermetically sealed or anything like that. It was actually kind of bulging, because I asked how old Ziggy's character was. I was just like, you know, how old is your character? And he's like, 20, 23, or he said something like that. And I'm like, okay, and you're burying your dead son, which means that, you know, for this to be believable, your son would have to be like 5 or 6 at most, something like that. And so this coffin was going to be very small. And so they're trying to smuggle a crate worth of drugs, and so they fit all the drugs in there, but the lid is sort of bulging. And so keep in mind, during this whole thing, this is where flashbacks come in play. This is where you say, oh, but flashback, I planned for this, I prepared for this, blah, 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 whatever. And so they decided as a flashback that they wanted to put like bits of meat They want to put bits of slightly rotting meat in the coffin, like smushed in with the drugs. And I don't know why. I really don't understand. I guess they were hoping that the aroma of the rotting meat would, like, cue off the guard, and he'd be like, oh, man, it's just the meat that he smells, and he really wants it. But, like, drug dogs are not... They're not that stupid. I mean, at least as far as I understand. I think they know the difference between drugs and meat. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't really know much about them. So maybe they have, like, a high sort of failability rate or something, but I thought they could do what they're trained to do, but maybe that's false. And so, of course, you know, they sort of had the right idea, I suppose, of smuggling things in a coffin for a burial at sea, but the lie was just... I mean, he did not think about the small coffin when he came up with the lie, and I know he didn't. But he wanted to do sun because he thought that would garner much more sympathy, and so these guards would be like, oh, I'm so sorry. But I'm sorry, I'm setting the tone here. You're playing in the wrong fucking game. You're not going to find sympathy among the guards working at the docks. It's just not going to... I mean, you know, for a lot of things, you should talk to your players about the tone of the game that you want to run, they want to play in, and things like that, but I just drew a line in the sand. It's like, you're not getting sympathy from these guys. These guys don't give a freaking rat's ass about you and your dead son. This is, like, one of the shittiest cities you can ever live in. Like, people's sons die every day. They don't give a shit. So I drew a line in the sand there. And so, you know, if they had done a better lie of, like, yeah, it was my you know, 90-year-old grandfather or something like that, and they actually nailed the coffin shut, that would have been much better. Because it's not like they couldn't pry the nails off later, you know, in safety. But on a busy day at the docks, you know, it would have been less likely that they would be like, all right, you know, go get a crowbar or hammer or whatever, you know, like, let's pry off all these nails we're going to open it, and they're like, that would have probably been better if you're just going to ask me. But I digress. That's not what they did. They had the dead son. The coffin lid was sort of bulging off of the coffin because of how much stuff they had crammed in there. Because in addition to all the drugs, they also put in some meat. And so the guard just was not buying their lies, and so he wanted a bribe, and so Ziggy gave him a coin, which is like a bag full of silver coins, which is pretty good. You know, for this whole job, they were getting paid 6 coins. That's between all 3 of them. So to give away a bribe of a coin is tricky. You can give away a lesser bribe. I mean, a coin to give away is like, holy shit. And this was sort of compounded by the fact that I think the guy actually did smell the rotting meat. And he's like, oh my god, you didn't have this embalmed? And Ziggy said he couldn't afford it. But now here he is just casually giving away a sack full of coins as a bribe. Sort of like that bribe right there easily would have paid. You could have paid to embalm like 8 people for that amount. And so that just blew away that whole lie. So now he knew that this was something real shady going on. But since it was so much money, he was like, all right, you know, I'll just let this go. And it was at this point... It was at this point that I was like, oh, you forgot to declare your load. Because before you go on the score, before you go on the job, you have to, each player has to declare basically how much stuff they're bringing. They don't have to declare what specifically they're bringing to the job. They just have to declare how much of it they are. It's a really interesting system. Actually, it's one of my favorite things about Blades in the Dark. But basically, you either have to say you're doing light, medium, or heavy load. And so a lot of items are just like 1 load each. So if you're doing light load, you can bring like 3 items. Medium load like 5, or heavy 6, give or take. And while you're on the job, you basically have access to your entire like laundry list of items, all sorts of stuff. And it's kind of like, I described it as like a Schrodinger's inventory, where it's like all of these items are technically in your inventory, but technically not in your inventory. It's only once you declare like, oh, I have a gun, or I have some documents, I have a bottle of whiskey, I have a knife, or whatever, then that's when you check it off, and it's like, okay, that marks against your load. And once, you know, if you're carrying light load and you've declared 3 items, it's like, all right, you're done. That's it. You are carrying nothing else. It's a really interesting inventory system. I really like it. And so basically, if you're going into a job with light load, you're there to sort of blend in. You basically are you have nothing bulging out. You have no really obvious weaponry or anything like that. You look like just a normal citizen. If you have medium load, you look like you're a scoundrel. You're sort of bulging a little bit. It looks like you're ready for some night work or something. If you're heavy load, that's like a fully decked out like Shadowrun character, you know, like you look like you're fucking ready for war. That's basically the 3 differences. And so I asked them, like, are you light, medium, or heavy? And 2 of them said light right away. And then Phil's like, I'm medium. And I asked him, I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I'm medium. And then it's like, okay. He was fine with it. And later on, I was like, not much later on, I was like, you know, medium means you're a scoundrel. You're like ready for work, like dirty work. Whereas light specifically says you're trying to blend in with as citizens. And so there's an important distinction there. When you're all trying to deceive some guards, you're all trying to pretend to be normal citizens. You all want to be light. And so I asked him if he was sure. I guess maybe he didn't fully understand the repercussions, but it made for a much more hilarious session. Because that's when the guard, of course, noticed that one of the guys was bulging a little bit beneath his mourning clothes. He was sort of bulging out with potential weaponry, and so he sort of like gave him a little bit of a glance and you know, sort of gave him a hard stare a little bit, but he walked off with his sack full of coins. Anyways, I'll try to speed this up. So they get to the front of the line. They're about to go talk to like the customs agent or whatever to get into the docks. And this is when Phil decides he's gonna bug out. Like he's not prepared for this. He's clearly he brought too much. He's not ready. So he decides to just step out of line and walk away. Well, unfortunately, he waited too long. If he had done that like a minute ago, okay, fine. If he had done that right when the guy was walking away after he got his money, okay, he probably could have gotten, it would have been whatever. But he did it right at the front of the line, and it's like, alright, that seems pretty mysterious. He didn't say anything, like, because they could have heard him, or they could have seen him whispering or something, but he just suddenly turns and walks away. And so now the guy that had gotten the bribe is like, wait a minute, what's going on? What exactly are they doing? He knows they're up to no good, but he's hoping it's something, like, innocent. Not innocent, but, you know, not, like, life-threatening to all these people. But now he's got people bugging out. So he's worried there might be some, like, explosive or some sort of harmful chemical in there. Or who knows what's in that coffin. They're dressed for death, pretty much. So he's like, alright, he's going to try and investigate a little bit. He's going to follow this guy and see what's up. And so really, you know, if Phil would have just talked to him, he could have, you know, just tried to lie it off or perhaps give him another bribe or, you know, really, like, they got to understand, these guards are pretty much all corrupt. If he could have just convinced him, he's like, listen, we're just smuggling something, just take your money and just walk away, or, you know, just ignore it, whatever. If he could have convinced him of that, he'd be like, all right, but, you know, this is the last time you operate in this area. for a while. What, you know, just some, he would have given him some, like, just canned warning or whatever, but no, Phil assumed this guy was ready for blood, and so he waited in ambush, and he got into this big scuffle with this guy with knives and swords and guns, and Phil lost. Phil lost badly, actually. If it wasn't for Phil's crow that managed to peck out one of the guy's eyes, the guard would have been completely unharmed, pretty much. Meanwhile, Phil got, like, stabbed in the arm and shot in the spine and stuff. Oh, he got, like, a sword through his gut. It was really bad. Like, he was just down for the count. He took a trauma, and he was just, like, that was it for him for the rest of the session. He just got just wiped clean. But the guard did lose an eye, and so now, at that point, he starts running back, because now he's like, alright, I'm not fucking having this. This guy was ready to just shiv me immediately for following him. Like, this is some bad shit. And he just wanted to, like it didn't matter that he got a bribe. He lost a fucking eye. So he was pissed. So he wanted to shut this whole little shady operation down. So he starts running back to the front of the line. Meanwhile, Ziggy and Thomas are trying to get through customs, and they have to deal with the same rigmarole as before of trying to, like, pass through and pretend this is, oh, I'm grieving father and blah, blah, blah. And he gives him, like, his fine bottle of whiskey that he has on his inventory, and he passes off his documents and blah, blah, blah. But they really don't have anything more to bribe, because they're very poor. This crew is very poor. They need to focus on getting some more money, which that's what they're trying to do, but they don't want to give any away, and I understand. But they're in no position to just, like, start guns blazing or anything, so it was a tricky position. That's the whole point. And so finally, with the, you know, sort of the two of them convincing this guy that they're grieving and they just want to, you know, just send their dead boy off and blah, blah, blah. They finally get let through, but, like, moments afterwards, that's when the guy with one eye comes running back, and he's like, oh, get that other fucking scoundrel, get him, stop him, blah, grab him, you know, all this stuff. And so they rush towards a boat. They had borrowed a boat from one of Ziggy's, like, poker friends or something like that. So they jump on the boat, they just turn the motor on, and they start gunning away from the docks. And, of course, a bunch of bluecoats, a bunch of the police, jump in a patrol boat, which, of course, is faster than their shitty boat, and starts to give chase. And so they have a very exciting, sort of water-based gun battle out on the open sea, away from the docks. And they do manage to win. They take a lot of pain in the process. Neither one of them were really meant to be in a gun battle, because their proper gun guy is unconscious in a warehouse somewhere, bleeding out. But they do eventually manage to win. They take out all 4 police. They raid their police boat. They get, like, 2 coin out of it. They get some guns that they can sell off. They actually steal their uniforms, but they don't steal the patrol boat. And I was kind of surprised by that. But they just take their regular boat over to the Leviathan ship. They do the transaction. They are just fine. You know, keep in mind, Thomas is, like, about to bleed out. He's almost, like, out for the count. They get paid. Like, the Leviathan guys give them a chest full of, like, 16 coin. And I really just put this in as, like, a temptation for them to steal the money and really burn a bridge. But they did actually properly do the job. So they go back, they go through a different part of the docks, like a whole different section, different security. And so this was sort of troublesome because they were both wearing blue coat uniforms. They were both injured. One of them's about to, like, bleed out. You can barely keep his eyes open. They're in a non-blue coat boat, and they have no blue coat, like, identification, really. And so, you know, the guys that stop them at the security checkpoint, they ask for, like, papers or something for the boat, because it's it's, you know, it could be unlicensed, you know, this seems fishy to them. And so, of course, as Ziggy is passing over the papers, he pulls out 2 guns and shoots them both. And I'm just like, all right, you shoot him dead. You had him by surprise. It's point blank. You're not going to roll for that shit. So they shoot him, and now, of course, there's going to be a big commotion. And so they try and, like, he tries to slip away casually, as the other guards are like, what happened? Did you see what happened here? Blah, blah, blah. And he, like, tries to pass it off. I think he fails that. And so it's just like, oh, man. So then he just guns it. He just guns it through the canals of the city to try and get away. He makes, like, one final roll. And I'm like, all right, this has been a long, tough job. I've been cruel to you, so I'll be nice. And so basically they crash the boat, but they manage to survive. They get the chest full of money off. They get Thomas off the boat. And they end up delivering the chest of money to the guy. They get an extra coin out of it because they all almost died. So this guy did actually feel a little sympathetic. And so they get an extra coin out of it, 7 coin. They got the 2 coin from the blue coats that they killed. And so they were happy with the pay, I guess. But they are definitely in pretty rough shape. They actually spent almost all their downtime in recovery. So they're doing okay, but now they've got trauma and things like that. So they took a lot of heat and wanted level for all their actions because they were killing people and shit. But they gained rep, they gained money, and basically Phil's character was sort of rescued by a contact, one of his contacts, and so I let him decide the contact that rescued him. And he actually went with his rival. He has like a sort of a rival bounty hunter. And he's like, yeah, he rescued me. And I'm like, all right, he rescues you. But he demands that you give him your next pay. For your next, whatever job you did or doing or whatever. He wants your next pay to go to him instead for saving you. And so I was wondering if Phil would do it. I gave him the option. He could have, you know, shorted him and just, you know, really gone to war with this guy, but he did pay him, and so they were even. And but he might come back to sort of extort this connection now. But yeah, so it was rough for them. You know, they definitely struggled. They had a hell of a time. It was very cinematic at times. It was pretty exciting, and that was just running it by the seat of my pants. But I think they had fun. And so I think next time they might focus on building up their gang a little bit. Because when you have gang, you have crew members, part of your gang. You can have all sorts of flashbacks that involve other members of your gang. They're like, oh yeah, you know, I planned for this, so I told this guy to be here in this spot, pretending to be this guy, or, you know, blah, 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 all this sorts of stuff. It opens up a lot of avenues for your jobs. So we'll see how it goes. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I'd love to play Blades in the Dark again sometime, but we'll see. Alright, I guess that's about it. We talked long enough. Check out the Nords video tomorrow with the cool panning shots. More Final Fantasy, more Bloodborne this week, more Blades in the Dark. I guess that's about it. My name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.